This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. Really, these debates need to come on earlier, man. I gotta rush home and rewatch this show, watch the debates and Schitt's Creek while getting to bed on time. Come on, Commission. Anyway, here's what we got for y'all. Tonight, as some states have slashed the number of polling locations in recent years, it made it especially tougher for many college students to cast their votes. Plus, with the final presidential debate playing out tonight, we look at the role of fact-checking and moderators in this political tradition. But first, here's what you need to know right now.
On the motion to report the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to be an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, the clerk will call the roll.
Republicans voted unanimously to move forward with a final vote on the nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the U.S. Supreme Court. But Democrats were noticeably absent from the room. They boycotted the session, and their empty seats instead featured pictures of Americans who had been helped by the Affordable Care Act. If confirmed, Barrett would join the court in time to hear a legal challenge to the healthcare law's mandate that every American have health insurance. While Barrett has said she is not hostile towards the ACA, Democrats doubt she would uphold the law. The final vote on the Senate floor for Barrett's confirmation is scheduled for Monday. The parents of 545 children separated at the US-Mexico border still cannot be found. That's according to documents filed in court this week by the Justice Department and the American Civil Liberties Union. Under the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy, U.S. government officials separated more than 2,700 children from their parents between July of 2017 and June of 2018, before a federal judge ordered that children must be reunited with their parents. While thousands of children were reunited within weeks of the order, others have now been separated for years. The filing estimates that 2/3 of the separated parents have returned to their home countries. Tonight is the last chance to see both Joe Biden and President Donald Trump debate key issues just 12 days out from the election. The candidates will go face-to-face in Nashville in what will hopefully be a more civil debate with fewer interruptions than the first go-round. The Commission on Presidential Debates plans to give 2 minutes of uninterrupted time to each candidate at the beginning of every segment. The other candidate's mic will be muted during that time. The real question is, will the answers make any impact on undecided voters? Typically, debates don't tend to sway voters. Not to mention this year, there's been a surge of early in-person voting, and millions of Americans have already sent their mail-in ballots. Come November, Gen Z and millennials will make up 37% of the voting age population. And while the 26th Amendment guarantees the right to vote for everyone over 18 years old, the roadblocks to access that right are high for young voters, especially college students. Newsy's Ellen Rolfus went to Texas to hear how students are working to get out the vote in advance of the election.
Despite the pandemic, more than 80% of colleges have reopened for students to take some or all of their classes in person. And while life on campus may look drastically different than it did last semester, there's one thing that hasn't changed. Come November, students will be looking to vote, and they'll face voting hurdles that existed long before COVID-19.
My name is Anthony Zhang. I am a junior public health and chemistry major at the University of Texas at Austin, and I am the president of Texas Votes. Okay, this is my mock voter registration form. You do need to update your voter registration every single time you move. So with that being said, does anyone need to update their registration? So if you have moved since you last did this, you need to do it again. All right, that's a lot, so I'm just gonna quickly give you all a primer on how to do this.
College students have traditionally been one of the most difficult groups to get out to the polls. Many are first-time voters who don't know how to register, and in Texas, they can't register online and must file at least 30 days before an election.
If you are not registered to vote in the next 6 hours, you will not be able to vote in the primary election. We can register you right now, it takes a couple minutes, and you will be able to vote. But you have to do it tonight. Tonight is the last time to register for the primary election.
Right now, the politics in Texas are really in flux, and it's especially unpredictable because we've had such a surge in voter registration. There's never been more Texans registered to vote ever as there is right now.
One of the biggest challenges to voting is access to the polls.
Having polling locations on our campus has made a huge impact for our students. We are seeing about 70 to 80% of our students early vote, and that early voting is primarily like on our campus, which is incredible. It means it's faster for them, it's easier for them.
Texas has eliminated hundreds of polling locations in recent years, which means many voters must now travel farther to get to their nearest site.
Proximity to a polling location is enormous. You are 42% less likely to vote if you do not have a polling location less than 2/3 of a mile from you.
A new state law passed in 2019 has also triggered fewer sites for early voting, including many on college campuses. Prairie View A&M is one of the universities that's lost its on-campus location for early voting.
Basically, what we're marching for is to showcase the disenfranchisement that students face, well, Prairie View students specifically face every time there's some type of election. It doesn't matter if it's local or if it's national level elections, it's something.
As Texas's first historically black college, Prairie View students have faced a long history of voter suppression. In the 1970s, Waller County wouldn't let black students vote because they weren't quote-unquote permanent residents. The lawsuit that followed made it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which ruled in favor of the Prairie View students and affirmed all students' right to vote in their college communities. But it didn't guarantee their right to vote on campus. The decision about whether or not to put polls on campus is one that election officials argue is about balancing the needs of students with other residents.
We spent entirely too much time talking about how it's inconvenient for students to walk more than a couple hundred feet to get to a polling place and all this other stuff, when the people of Prairie View have been completely disregarded with regard to that. Now,
we want to give everybody the right to vote, and the students absolutely have just as much right as anybody here. But to say that they need extra special attention, no.
What a lot of people wanted was, well, let's just have an early voting poll on campus, and then we'll put one at the community center for the residents. But how can I justify having two polls in a location that's a few hundred yards apart when I have folks in Field Store and these other remote areas of the county? They don't get a poll at all, and they have to drive 20 minutes. I can't justify that.
Why? You need to utilize y'all's voice for real, y'all. This is our right to vote. Voting is literally the simplest right, but the most impactful. So let's show them what we are made to do. We're PD students and proud to be PD students, right?
This is something as students that we're supposed to be excited about, especially people who are like the incoming freshmen who have never voted once in their life. This is supposed to be their first time, and you're discouraging them from doing so by putting it off campus if they don't have a car or they think it's too far of a walk.
Since the last presidential election, an additional 15 million Americans turned 18, becoming eligible to vote. And youth voter registration in many states, including Texas, has already exceeded levels seen pre-election in 2016. If turnout trends continue, college students and young people could play an increasingly important role in elections. That is, if the process of registering and getting out to vote is within their reach.
Apologies in advance for not focusing on hashtag Thursday Motivation, whatever the heck Nintendo is up to, or National Make a Dog's Day in our trending topics. I'm actually pretty sad about that last one. For whatever reason, we thought y'all might want a little break from political news tonight, so we've got something different for you. Here's a rundown of what's trending outside the election realm. The biggest Hollywood experiment of 2020 is officially dead. That's Quibi, a streaming service that served up bite-sized movies, TV series, and newscasts, which is closing shop just 6 months after its launch. In a crowded space for streaming entertainment, Quibi's pitch hinged on unique technology that gave viewers a full-screen, big-budget video on your phone, whether watching vertically or landscape.
Quick bites, big stories. Quibi.
But a product built for viewers on the go faced an especially rocky rollout in a year when we really haven't been on the go. Though even the folks who launched Quibi admit you can't put all the blame on the pandemic. Founders Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman said in a joint statement that Quibi's failure was either because the idea itself wasn't strong enough to justify a standalone streaming service, or because of our timing. We suspect it's been a combination of the two. Quibi raised $1.75 billion from some big-name investors, but started shedding advertisers as it struggled to build viewership. The founders say they'd rather pull the plug now than spend a whole lot more money. We've told you before on the show that video games are cinema now. Well, this time we mean it literally. Today, the internet got its first look at Tom Holland in the lead role of Nathan Drake for the upcoming film Uncharted, based on the hit game series.
Hang on, Nathan! Where is the artifact?
For those non-gamers out there, Uncharted is a bit like Indiana Jones meets National Treasure. Along with Tom Holland, Mark Wahlberg is also in the mix for this film, playing Drake's mentor, Victor Sullivan, aka Sully. This movie is meant to be a sort of prequel to the game series. It's currently slated for release in July of 2021. Theaters will be open by then, right? Space news is always welcome during this insufferably stupid year, and we just got another distraction. A NASA spacecraft played tag with an asteroid 200 million miles away from Earth. Pics or it didn't happen, you say? Check this out. The spacecraft, known as the OSIRIS-REx, performed a touch-and-go, or tag, sample collection on asteroid Bennu by getting close, blasting nitrogen gas, collecting a sample, and then backing off, all within a few seconds. Here's an obligatory celebration vid from when the deed was done.
Sample collection is complete, and the back-away burn has executed.
This is incredibly cool because it's the first time NASA has collected a sample from an asteroid that is billions of years old. Japan has done it twice before. Bennu is an artifact from long ago that can tell us more about the composition of asteroids and what the solar system was like around 4.5 billion years ago. We still don't know how much NASA collected, but the spacecraft is scheduled to return to Earth with the sample by September of 2023. Plenty of time to speculate what sort of humanity-threatening material we're bringing back. We're seeing something new in tonight's final presidential debate. During each candidate's allotted time, the other candidate's microphone is muted. It's a little innovation for an election cycle that has raised a lot of questions around presidential debates, the role of fact-checking in those debates, and just what we expect from presidential moderators. Leading up to 2020, there have only ever been 19 different presidential debate moderators. That's fewer people than players on a field during a football game. That makes you realize how we're still figuring out this whole politics on TV thing. And all those moderators have faced the same sort of question. Should a moderator also be a fact checker? The co-chair of the Commission on Presidential Debates, the organization that's run all the presidential debates since 1988, says, nah.
We don't expect Chris or our other moderators to be fact checkers. The minute the TV is off, there are going to be plenty of fact checkers in every newspaper and every television station in the world. That's not the role, the main role of our moderators.
The commission says it's the candidate's job to point out the BS in each other's arguments.
Not true, Governor Romney.
So how much did you cut him
Not
by?
true.
So basically the onus is on everybody except for the night's moderator. And that raises another key question. Is that kind of free-for-all a good thing? This might not surprise you, but politicians sometimes have a tenuous relationship with the truth. And without at least some kind of fact-checking, whether from the moderator, the candidates, or on-screen graphics, the modern political debate can easily become the Super Bowl of political falsehoods. Basically a 90-minute nationally televised platform for lying. So what's the solution? And actually, is there a solution? Let's look at these options, starting with the moderator themselves stepping in, which can go poorly, like this infamously confusing fact check from Candy Crowley in 2012.
It did as well take 2 weeks or so for the whole idea of there being a riot out there about this tape to come out. You're correct about that.
Or it can be handled a bit more efficiently and still get you booed by the audience, like with John Dickerson in 2016.
Appointing or confirming, what's the difference?
In this case, it's both, but if I could answer the question.
Sorry, I just want to get the facts straight for the audience. I apologize.
But our personal favorite approach was this from the New York Times editor Max Frankel, delivering the most understated fact check of all time by really just asking Gerald Ford to repeat something everybody knew was wrong.
I'm sorry, could I just follow? Did I understand you to say, sir, that the Russians are not using Eastern Europe as their own sphere of influence?
For a less personal but somewhat more blunt approach, some networks will turn to on-screen graphics to fact-check the candidates. This at least give the viewers some key context, and God knows it's more useful than the old real-time voter approval trends we used to see. And then there's the option of fact-checking post-debate, which is generally what we'll see, if anything, in this election cycle. Even if it means you have to train as an auctioneer to get through it all in a couple of minutes.
More than 20 false or misleading claims. Trump claimed, as always, that he is the one who passed the Veterans' Choice Law. Barack Obama signed that into law in 2014. He didn't mention, as usual, that that gain follows a record 22 million job loss. Trump said, "I have done more for the African-American community than any president since Abraham Lincoln." That is ludicrous.
Now, Newsy is obviously serving up some valuable context throughout this election, but whether it's through us or somewhere else, the best thing you can do to make sure you're getting the facts is to just double check what a candidate is saying, preferably with multiple sources. We all know you'll be on your phone during the debates anyway. One major issue from the 2016 election has gotten largely overlooked during this election cycle. Immigration was a pretty hot topic going into the 2016 election, like grabbing a ripping hot cast iron skillet while barehanded kinda hot. According to a Pew Research poll, 70% of eligible voters said immigration was very important to their vote in 2016. And President Trump's campaign was chock full of anti-immigration rhetoric. But immigration has gone mostly ignored during this election cycle. Newsy's Ben Shamiso explains why.
President Trump's hardline immigration stance helped him win the White House 4 years ago.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best.
But in 2020, the president has put the issue somewhat on the back burner.
It basically shows how dominant the pandemic as an issue is this year.
The coronavirus, the economy, and protests over racial injustice have relegated immigration to the bottom of issues voters care most about. The lack of attention to immigration is also the president's own doing.
A lot of the policies that the Trump administration has put in place, like them or not, have decreased the number of people trying to attempt crossing at the border. So it's not a front-of-mind issue for a lot of voters.
President Trump still boasts about his signature border wall at campaign rallies.
You know, the wall is going to be completed very soon.
And many of his campaign ads attack Joe Biden's immigration platform.
Amnesty for 11 million illegal immigrants.
But his painting of immigrants as criminals has been subdued, if not recycled, by his more dominant law and order rallying cry.
Anybody who's been paying attention probably would see some linkages between the two.
The fact that journalists didn't bring up a single immigration question during the debates further downplays the issue. That seems to suit the Biden campaign just fine. In a recent Newsy poll of moderate voters in swing states, only 7% of respondents viewed Biden's immigration stance as a top reason to vote for him. On the flip side, 23% cited his immigration platform as a main reason not to vote for him.
There's a lot of Americans that are concerned about their futures, and they use immigration as a scapegoat for the economic and security problems.
Even though immigration has been largely ignored this election year, the stakes couldn't be higher. President Trump has drastically curbed immigration through hundreds of new executive actions and rules. And Joe Biden has promised to quickly roll back most of these actions and advance his own immigration platform. Ben Shamiso, Newsy.
If you haven't already, take a moment and reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. That's it. That's the message. The coronavirus pandemic has been devastating, not just because of what it can do to somebody who's infected, but because of how it has exacerbated existing issues for those already disproportionately affected. For the Hopi tribe in Arizona, the pandemic has been tough because of insufficient water systems for something as basic as washing your hands. As Newsy's Angela Hill reports, the local government has money to address the issues, but only a limited amount of time to do so.
The most common advice for beating COVID-19 is wash your hands. But that simple instruction isn't so simple when you don't have access to clean, running water. For the Hopi tribe of Arizona, the coronavirus has highlighted long-standing disparities on the reservation.
This area don't have water or sewer lines, but inside the village they have both water and sewer, but not everybody's hooked up to the community line.
For Vivian Cochisi and her children, that meant hauling water twice a day from their village windmill, risking greater exposure to the virus.
And so that means sanitizing my pitchers, wiping my water can and my buckets, and then when we go to the community, I'm wiping the handles and things because you just don't know.
For now, this portable hand washing station is the closest Vivian will get to running water at home.
I like it. I love it.
Nearly 40% of households on the Hopi reservation don't have running water.
So make sure you put plumbing tape on the adapters. All of these wonderful people here are learning to build stations, and hopefully we'll continue to build stations for the whole community.
The portable hand washing station is a creative stopgap. It was designed by the local nonprofit Red Feather. They have provided over 200 of the stations to Hopi households, offering a more convenient and safer way to access clean water. But they don't combat the much larger issue facing the reservation: insufficient water infrastructure.
Where we're located at geographically, there's a lot of high mesas, challenging terrain that we have to get through. The village right up here to the west of us, Ojaivi, has no water infrastructure at all.
Timothy Navayama is chairman of the Hopi tribe. He says the tribe has had water infrastructure plans in place for years.
It's just the lack of the funding has been what was holding the Hopi tribe up.
With a 65% unemployment rate and a struggling economy, it's challenging for the tribe to generate enough revenue streams to build out the water infrastructure it so desperately needs.
Well, a lot of people have become reliant on bottled water, which comes at a price, and it shouldn't be like that.
That's why the chairman is looking to use some of the $92 million the tribe received from the CARES Act to build new water systems.
The water infrastructure they're currently working on right now will stretch out with potable water off one of our aquifers.
But the clock is ticking. Hopi and other tribes were given CARES Act monies in June, 2 months after other state and local governments, yet they have only until December 30th to spend billions of dollars, making it a race against the clock to comply with federal government restrictions and vet contractors to complete projects that normally take years.
If they truly want us to use that money appropriately and get something built out that's going to benefit overall the long term of the reservation that has truly needed this attention, we need a little bit more time. We just, bottom line, need more time to fully assess this to make sure that these are built out.
For now, Vivian and her family are grateful for flowing water.
It just made it a lot easier, and just visualizing that you're at an actual bathroom sink.
Angela Hill, Newsy.
That's it for us, gang. As always, thanks for watching. No show tomorrow. Instead, I'll be working to integrate cats over the weekend. If I have visible scratches next week, you'll know where they're from. More In the Loop Monday, same time, same place. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.